Going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to the Property Pod.
Today is how do you pick a real estate agent?
Yes, so
That can be a couple of different things. Agents are now probably better educated as well as to what properties are going to sell for.
talking about it over coffee when we used to just catch up for coffee and not record it. You talk about it in a way that's accessible and easy to listen.
If you've been in your career for a short while, how do you take yourself to the next level?
Yeah.
It was
Start
really
a podcast.
Yeah,
Clearly.
exactly right. Yeah, epic
This
voice.
week on the Property Pod. That's right, crew. Welcome back to the Property Pod, your weekly dip into the property market with Aaron Horn, your host, and our two real estate agents, John McGregor and Patrick Berry. How are we, guys?
Doing good, gentlemen.
Very excited to be here.
You're very excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. It's actually been a cracking week in Tassie. Everything's kind of fallen into place, and it's end of month today, and things are going really well.
It's
at
been
the
a
agency.
crazy month at the agency.
Yeah, so I
I
guess
don't like to toot my own horn, but it has been busy.
well, toot away.
And I must say, it's kind of nice to go from my desk like 5 minutes away into the studio rather than driving all the way from Moona, which is not a long way to
That's right, people. In case you haven't forgot, you don't remember, John now works for us, and he sits right next to Aaron and I daily.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's
It's
interesting.
funny. It's actually funny how much work is getting done considering we're all in the same venue all at the same time. It's interesting. I was like, I wonder how we're all going to like fall into place because, funnily enough, your dad Pat was cleaning out his old office, which they're going to turn into kind of a
breakout room.
breakout room sort of
staff
thing.
room.
So he's come up to me yesterday with this class picture of your year 3 class at Dominic.
Why that was in his office, I don't know.
Well, he had a few portraits of you in there, as a real young, like you know when you do the glamour shoots with like a denim jacket with fur on it and stuff. And
My denim jacket had a Batman logo on the back.
oh, did it?
Loved it.
Oh, see, they missed the best bit of the photo.
Well, I wanted to throw it over my shoulder.
Well, he's brought out the pictures and he's like, "Where are you in this?" And I said, "Oh no, I didn't join the party until year 7. Like,
Yeah.
Don't worry about that." But there was you, John, in there. There was kind of Anthony Triffett. There was Marco Bologna. There was all the old school crew. And it was amazing to think like you've come from these tiny, tiny little tackers.
Yep.
And now you're working side by side
And the first thing Paul said too is like, if you're looking for Pat, look for Parker. It's just look for your son.
oh yeah, carbon copy. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yes, we have been having a bit of fun in the new office space, but we're also down to business. And speaking of getting down to business, just before we jump into anything further, I have to report that I have been reprimanded.
Reprimanded.
Bum, bum, bum.
Wow.
I've been in a bit of trouble on the home front, and I kind of have to apologise to part of the team, and I also kind of will have to show. I'll just play this little clip, and you guys listen to this and tell me what you think of this.
I love when he brings a clip in.
Yeah, I love bringing clips in as well. Here we go. But this clip, I'm very sorry.
Hello, boys. I've been listening to your podcast every week, and I'm quite impressed with what I'm learning. But I do think that you've been picking on Pat a little bit lately.
Oh, yeah.
You should put it in a little bit and let Pat have his say when he wants to say something.
So I've been told to pull my head in. All right. Nana's let me know that I need to pull my head in.
All right.
Stop picking on Pat for not talking.
Pat gets a whole pass for the next couple of weeks.
Look, it's all about quality, not quantity, boys.
Yeah, look, this is what the fans are demanding. We actually went down to Kingston Beach on the weekend. It was beautiful. We took my son and the family down, and Nan was like, she didn't even say like I'm enjoying the podcast. She's like, you need to stop picking on Pat.
Damn straight.
Well, mate, I guess the show's all yours now.
All right, boys, put your mics down. Let's do this.
Yeah, you're listening to the Property Pod with Patrick Berry. No one else.
Now, I couldn't do the show without you boys. I'd, like Aaron says, run out of stuff to say, but
No, look,
I'll do my best today to have my input.
And just know you've got your fans out there.
That's it.
Clearly, Nan's a fan.
Boom.
So the hot property news coming out of, I think 7 News was the article that we found this week that says Tasmania has pulled ahead of Victoria and is the country's top state.
Oh, what a sizzling news story you've got there.
As I read that out loud, I'm just like, it's not too hard.
It's coming in hard.
It's not too hard to be beating Victoria. At the
No,
moment.
it's not fair because it's
state.
actually an Australia-wide article that it's referring to, and it was produced by ComSec, which is Commonwealth Bank's business department.
So as we read a bit further, it does say for the first time since October 2009, Tasmania has been ranked the best performing state in Australia in its own right, according to ComSec.
Well, there's a first for everything.
And 3 months ago, Tasmania shared the top spot with Victoria, which is now second place, and risks a further decline with all their COVID-19 stuff. But what does it kind of mean in terms of why are we the best state?
Well, I think personally, what it's referring to is the confidence in the market. So people are out spending money, they're out enjoying themselves. Like an example, I went out to Boodle Beasley on Wednesday night and it was absolutely chockers upstairs and downstairs. So we're lucky in Tassie because we don't have the cases that people are back to normal and out enjoying life. And what that's doing is creating a sense of confidence and a sense of job security. They feel good about themselves. And all that really does is it strengthens our position from real estate agents as well, because when there's confidence in your job, there's confidence in the market, things sell.
Well, you're confident in your life because you're ready to, make some big changes, make some big shifts.
And look, we've seen that huge this month in the office. It's been flat stick, a huge amount of listings coming through. Most of them have already resold, and it's just been a really active marketplace over the last 30 days. So I'm not surprised that we're topping the list at the moment.
Well, and that's been in every direction, from the city to the suburbs to rural. All of them have just had really strong interest, and it's locals. It
does seem really fast when I'll be putting up the marketing materials and sending them through to the agents. It's kind of like the offers are coming thick and fast again, where there was that kind of period. I guess there was uncertainty earlier in the year where everything slowed down into kind of what's going to happen. But it's such a strange idea at the moment. I kind of almost forgot about all this stuff that's been going on in 2020 with the chaos. I was just kind of driving along and being like, oh yeah, I'd listened to this other podcast and they were discussing how the lockdowns are affecting Victoria, and there's all these Karens with their masks in Bunnings and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it just seems so far removed from the culture of what's happening. I just can't comprehend some of this stuff that's going on with, I'm going to film me going up to a Bunnings employee and I'm going to post it on the internet and be a hero. And it's... Sorry, that is off kilter. That has got nothing to do with what we're trying to talk about. But basically, it's so strange that that's happening out just across the border, across the pond.
So close
to home. But everything feels quite secure in what we're doing here.
It's that magical moat we have.
Yeah, well,
I actually
love the moat.
So yesterday I was chatting to one of the guys looking after workplace safety, so as an inspector, and that's been a really interesting position for him apparently, because most of their stuff at this point is dedicated to ensuring that businesses are maintaining their requirements under the new COVID legislation.
Yeah.
So I mean, for him obviously is that they don't want to. It's always painful to have to slap businesses on the wrist, but because I would think that the biggest challenge is because the business needs to start making money again. Consumers are starting to want to purchase again, and you've got this real contention between the businesses and consumers want to be active, but then of course legislation's still running in the middle, outside of the normal what everyone's been used to for their whole lives.
Yeah, I'd hate to be the workplace safety inspectors at the moment, because their job would be pretty intense.
It'd be hard too. I think one of the challenges he had obviously was with pubs and clubs, especially because for a job like ours, we're fortunate. It's not exactly going to make a huge big difference. We can still.
I don't know. I had to fill out a 45-page document for those guys, John. There was a fair bit in it.
No, don't you remember you thought you had to fill out the document and you got to the last page?
If he's listening, they tricked me, John. I filled the whole damn thing out, got to the last page, and it says you don't need to send it anywhere. Where at the start of the email, it sounded like I needed to fill this out.
For your own.
Yeah, and then email it off to them for them to review. So I spent all this time doing it. Got to the last page and said, just keep it on file in case we come in to visit you. And I was like, oh.
Well, at least it's there.
Well, that's it. It forced me to do it.
Yep.
It actually reminded me of a test that we did in year 3 at Dominic, where the actual test was just to read the document. And you didn't have to do anything apart from the teacher was trying to teach you to read the whole thing before you started.
Clever.
And the last page was just bring it up to the counter. But all of us are sitting there scribbling down these maths answers trying to do
just
the
get
test.
it done. It never had to be done in the first place.
Yeah. No.
Who would have been the one in the class that did it right? Who do you think would have read through it the whole way through?
Elise Gleaner.
Yeah, she was solid at math. But there's a few others too.
Speaking of maths tests, do you remember the time me and you were in the front of O'Keefe's class and we had the example sheet right in front of us, and every question on the test was from the example sheet.
Yeah, it was exact same.
We filled out the whole thing. He's like, what are you guys doing with that? And we're like, oh, aren't you allowed to have that?
Hey, are you allowed to have the example sheet? Well, he's supposed to change the test. That was his fault, not ours.
That was the first time we ever got a good mark in that class.
Well, see, but his thing was too, remember, he wouldn't grab the pieces of paper. He'd just call out what you got. So he'd be handing it back. And so the thing is that if you weren't A-star student, which I wasn't, you just had, if I didn't do well in the test, I couldn't give didn't want to give myself a D. So I couldn't give myself an A. So you had to slide right in the middle somewhere, maybe a B- or something, So at least then
You're hid in the pack.
Hid in the pack. That's right. Don't want to be the zebra, Anyway.
Back to real estate.
We're just talking about really important things like how the country is semi on lockdown.
Yeah, with all maths equations and problems.
I feel like we got a little bit off track there, but bottom line is that article where we started this whole rant was pretty positive for the state.
Yes.
And I think it's reflecting in day-to-day life from what we're seeing on the ground.
And not with locals just wanting to get on with it. I mean, I've booked an Airbnb in a couple of weeks' time to take a few days off, just with the same instance that, because that thought was, normally you'd probably, why don't we take off somewhere? It was like, no, stuff it. Let's just, where's somewhere I haven't stayed before, and I'll go stay there instead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm only speaking for myself, but I guess the thing is, because it's so awkward for us to travel anywhere at the moment, but if you still want a bit of breathing space, just still go local.
I guess the benefit of living in this moated state that we have with water around us is that we are in a position where we can travel, where we're not locked in our houses or hotel rooms and in this quarantine bunker, and hopefully, we can maintain that in this state, and things like the article say that we've saying that we're, top state at the moment, which is, we're normally the laughing stock down here in Tassie. And
now they're all jealous.
One of the really exciting things, and I thought about this quite some time ago, where if Tassie could ever set itself up as with a very well established technology base. So if we had ridiculously good internet connection, just that.
Well, that's the end of that conversation.
Yeah, I know, right? But because obviously everyone's had to really adapt to the way they do their work, if then, because they realise, maybe you don't have to be centrally located where you are working, it could be a very well-established remote centre, Tassie could really set itself apart in that way down the road, knowing if anyone does want to escape and have this little island, and they can still be really well connected to the world, that'd actually be a really good driver for as an attraction to the state as well.
I could be way off here, and this might be he might have got me hook, line and sinker, but have you guys seen on the Instagram that Hobart Rock City character?
Not yet, no.
It's kind of like does all these memes that are based around Hobart and stuff, but he had something like to do with the call centre culture of Hobart, like how many call centres there are, and he said something like per capita or something by size, we've got the highest call centre rate in like the whole world or something, like it's even more than you would imagine in your Manilas or your...
Yeah, got you. So like by population versus
I'm
employment.
going to have to call bullshit on
I
that.
know, but he got me hook, line and sinker. I was just like, I don't know if that's legit or not, but maybe it's per capita. So it's because we're
a small population.
And because there's so many people that will be working in it.
And then you break down to the amount of working people, then to the job opportunities versus then the call centre of people of that proportion. It might make sense. Yeah.
I was just
Interesting.
rolling with John's technology speak.
Well,
and I was just saying maybe we're already kind of half there, but I also might have been tricked by a meme. So if you're out there, Hobart Rock City or whatever your name is on Instagram, you got me. You got me good.
Well, I mean, I guess the other thing I don't know well enough yet, but in terms of obviously the hospitality industries will still be hurting. I don't think there's any disillusion about that, because for all of a sudden we've lost our 2 million visitors a year for them, or however many there were. So I guess that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
I guess there's ways of it pivoting though. Like Pat said, he was out recently, and that was chock-a-block
for locals
people,
to drive locals. Yeah.
You're talking about travelling in the States, so there's like obviously it's not as booming as it was, but there are ways that those industries are bouncing back.
Yeah, I think I guess I know there's a story I have from when I first got into real estate with our old group. I go to real estate conferences and they'd say where you're from, and if I just said Tassie, the jokes would immediately start, and they'd be like, "Oh, where's your two heads?" and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But all these years later, I'd go to the same conference and speak to the same people, and they wouldn't go, "Oh, Tassie two heads." They'd go, "Tassie, I've always wanted to be there." So just the whole perception of this state's completely changed. And I think after then, this cultural shift, and I think with Mona being a seminal part of that identity, Tasmanians are proud about Tassie. So I think then we're excited to support Tasmanian businesses too.
Oh, definitely.
So it'd be nice to know that we could continue this sense of interstate pride, I guess, as just to say, well, look, let's just support each other, so that when stuff does go wrong, we're still going to be okay. And I think with trying to think out loud, I suppose that'd be actually a really nice little thing that might come from this event for Tasmanians. We're like, well, let's all look after each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully at the end of this, there's kind of two sides of things. We're talking about the Karens before and the non-Karens, but hopefully as a globe, we can all kind of just look after each other and kind of get to the point where it's like, let's do this for the greater good rather than kind of be like, I want to go to Bunnings without my face mask.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Interesting people.
Oh, yeah. Getting back to real estate, you guys were just talking before we came on. I'm trying to push us from where we've just discussed to, you were saying something about mid-September. Is this like something to do with a drop-off in grants or like the mortgages and stuff like that?
I guess at the moment the market seems really good. Everything seems to be really busy and ticking over.
Yep.
There's a lot of security out there at the moment with things like JobKeeper, JobSeeker, Job Everything, all the creative names they came up with.
Yep.
A lot of those are due to end at the end of September. And a lot of bank mortgages that are on hold at the moment are due to end at the end of September.
Yep.
So obviously they'll probably change that getting close to September, but as it currently stands, that's when the cutoff date is.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an argument out there of what's going to happen to the property market when that happens. Is it going to drop dramatically like a financial cliff face, or will it continue to tick over? And that's the uncertainty. So what we've been sort of talking about a lot of clients at the moment is that the market is good, really good now. And what John and I have been suggesting to some clients is that if you're half thinking about selling, in the traditional springtime, maybe it might be worthwhile considering moving that time frame up a little bit and trying to cash in while there is a stronger market out there.
Yep.
Just to protect yourself. Like, hopefully nothing changes and we're just being doomsday preppers. But at the same time, it's that unknown and everything that's happened this year with all the different unknowns. Why wait for the September and springtime when the market is incredibly busy right now?
Yeah.
So if you're half sitting on the fence and thinking about selling,
So strike while the iron's hot kind
Pretty
of
much, yeah.
idea. You were saying something about you can't predict the future or you're only equipped to...
Yeah, so how this conversation came about is Pat and I went on an appraisal together yesterday in West Moona, and the young couple had been wanting to move from West Moona down to Franklin. And we spent a lot of time figuring out what the big rocks are in their property that's going to that they should be working on as quickly as possible to get it ready for sale.
Yep.
And then we looked at, we had this different angles. Will they move out? Do they find a rental? Do they buy first? What are all the different possible ways they could make this work? And then she just asked us a question, and this is where he said, she was really concerned about, is the market going to drop off the face of a cliff after this exact time frame? So obviously she's a highly detail-oriented person.
Yep.
So she's been doing a lot of research in that front. And that's where Pat and I were just reflecting is that, well, look, as a real estate agent, we can only give you advice on what the market is doing today.
Yes, this is what you were talking about. Yes.
So, because it just means that, we don't know what's going to happen in September, but we can give you advice today.
Yep.
Because we're not recognizing what our purpose is. It's not to be economists and to predict and I always think that if everyone ever asks, I'll just say, look, I've got to put a different hat on, and I'm just going to be guessing at this point because I usually just say refer to people much smarter than me for that opinion. And that's what we just said to them. Well, look, if this is a real commitment to you, we know it's hot right now, and we gave them all the statistics to support that. And that's when we're just like, well, if you are committed to this and you're worried about what might happen, well, then maybe it's best just to go now while we know it's working well.
Yep.
And I think that sort of just gave us something different to think about. Where as opposed to trying to wait for things to change and then you make a move because you're looking for some certainty. Your certainty's today. So if this is what you want, now's the time to act. And that conversation isn't always the same in all circumstances too.
So currently your advice is let's go to market, whereas in another market or at another time it could be let's get the carpets fixed or let's do this little thing rather than kind of hit the button now. But at the moment, while it's hot, you might want to jump in
if this is what you're committed to,
maybe negate the risk that could happen in September.
That's right. Well, after anything else, after this sort of short period of time is unknown for us.
Yes.
We know this is right now. So if you want to capitalise on that, now's the time to do it. So it's sort of where she was thinking she might have waited a little bit longer, but just encouraging her. Well, if you're committed to this, it might be worth you bringing your time frame in sooner.
And the only reason they were waiting was that they're halfway through doing a bit of renovation work. They're halfway through painting the outside of the house. They're working on fixing the kitchen up and a few bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And that's why they were putting this September timeframe on themselves, because they're like, oh, we're going to need this time to get it done. So as the conversation went on, the conversation started shifting to, well, how do we get this done to help you guys get moving? So what trades can we help bring to the table that can help you guys get to where you need to be to make this happen in 30 days, not in 120 days, for instance. So,
for sure.
And it's been really good. We've helping him out with a painter, getting some quotes organised. John's been talking to him about how to style the property well. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise as well, is that they think the real estate agent is just there to come in and put the property on the internet. And
at that point where it's ready to go.
But our job is to help minimise objections for your property as well as help streamline the process. So we'll do whatever we need to do. If John and I need to go put on some work pants and get a shovel, we'll go freaking do it. Whatever it takes to help you get to where you've got to be without as little stress as possible.
It's interesting you say that, because as you said, we've recommended this painter. I know which painter you're talking about, and I'm like, oh, yep, Phil's out there and he's going to be quoting it up and doing a rock solid job.
Yeah, he rang me this morning and said he couldn't do it, so I've got a new one. But anyway,
We've got others. That's
right.
He gave me another guy that he said would be perfect for the job.
Yeah.
So
But that's the thing. Now with all of us to go, we've got like 820 rental properties that we look after. So we need a vast amount of, maintenance crew to look at to help us.
Yeah.
So if you're a trade listening, ring up and give us your details, because we'll put you on the list.
Yeah, but like as you're saying that, I didn't even really clock that. I've been working for you guys for a few years, and I know that that's a property management side of thing where they've got, their list of trades that they're, will constantly send work through. But yeah, the idea of kind of being like, oh yeah, we know these people, we can help
Leverage
you get to market. It often feels like people only get agents in when it's like, oh, I want the appraisal because I'm ready to go right now. Not like, oh, I wouldn't mind being ready to go soon, come in and give us the advice. Like that just seems like a no-brainer. Get them in as early as you can.
Yeah, and look, if you're 6, 12, 18 months away from getting ready to sell, but you've got a grand plan of what you want to do, we can come in and give you some advice, and if it's worthwhile, like, are you overcapitalizing? Are you hitting it perfectly? Are you not doing enough? Like we see houses on a daily basis. We start to know what buyers want. We start to know what will work and make you more money. So we're more than happy to spend 40 minutes, hour, whatever it takes with you, just to help you better understand where you need to be.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think you could see it in their face too was they're starting to recognise that their time is worth more than the money that's spent on a guy, on a tradesperson doing the same work. Because like he said, oh, look, she hates the idea of spending money.
Yep.
When she thinks, I could do it myself. But in the end, every time you do something yourself, you're trading it for something. You're trading your time for something else too.
It
was the same with the gardening. It's like, well, I said, well, look, we've got one of our gardeners. We just say it's going up for sale. Get to work. He knows exactly what we need to do. Like there's just all the minimum basic things to make it look neat and without the property, and that's it. I don't even have to tell him anything else. Don't have to admit the property, and it's just we know it's going to be a good price. He's going to work hard and get done quickly. And then they don't have to spend the next 3 weekends trying to clear out the garden. Why don't you get someone else in there to do it in one day? And inevitably, the amount of time that they'll be able to get it done, it'll actually cost them less. This is about that false economy. Remember, now we know what it means. Is that they could spend...
If I was to ask you right now, could you explain it all over again?
Absolutely.
Let's not go down that path.
I can. So the idea of false economy is that you'd buy 4 cheap batteries as opposed to 1, expecting because you thought, well, those 4 cheap batteries is a better deal. But ultimately, that if you just bought the one good one, it'll last you longer than those 4 to begin with.
Wasn't that your first example, and then Luke came in and told you that you were wrong?
No, that was the example that Luke gave me later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was just using it wrong. Anyway, so
Gotcha.
The idea being then is that they could see, well, maybe with this whole front area of the garden, well, maybe we don't have to worry about it. Someone rips in, we pay them, a fair amount for their time, and we haven't lost any downtime either. They've got the sanity, they've got the time with the kid, they've got the time with the dogs, they've got the time for work, and they could start to recognise that you don't always have to go it alone.
And then you can balance that, the effort that's gone into that, where you're then fixing up the other things at the same time, and then that's adding value to your property. So whatever you pay on the trade doing that will then equate to the profit at the end of the day.
Got it. And we have a really good example of that because John's just done it down at Sandy Bay.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yes,
so-
well, I wanted to follow up
I
on
reckon we
this.
could finish the story up by using
it up.
John's example.
So in both cases, then we were looking at a way of protecting their value. So we've talked before about enhancing, protecting, and overcapitalising. So for that couple, basically, our whole conversation was oriented towards protecting the value by fixing up these things to make sure that people have less buts when they come into it. So with that story of Norfolk Crescent that we said that we'd have been having trouble with. Now we just said to the owner was happy for us to give the advice on doing the work we needed to remarket it because
So this is the story we've covered in maybe 2 episodes. We came into this story.
we talked about properties that are falling through the cracks.
Yes, and then we've come back to it, and you said, we've painted the walls and stuff like that. So now we have the conclusion.
That's it. Yeah. So what we did was we got in one of our painters to at the front of the deck. We completely wash stained it so it looked, it came up nicely. We completely repainted the apartment. And also too, because that before we were pointing out that we'd had condensation issues, we made sure the painter used the right materials, extra coats and the right paints to ensure that that's minimised. That the mould had been completely properly cleaned, and then of course we got the shift property crew, styling crew, to come in and put the furniture in the unit, and it was so interesting too because even in those old photos where the bed was positioned differently in the room, he positioned it differently, and it made the whole space just come alive completely differently.
It was even, as I said, because I went back and did the photos for the second time through and reshot the property, that it opened up different angles to shoot and make the property look appealing from kind of the way the bed was facing one way. It didn't really open up this shot to be kind of, this is a functional space.
That's right.
Whereas I said to you, I actually had a few different shots that I could take, which then we added to the marketing material or kind of overhauled the whole thing and we really made the suburb a selling point as well.
Yeah.
And it seems like from that you had a really good response really quite swiftly.
Without question. And that where before it was going to be looking like we'd have to be adjusting the price to say 300 to just, make to meet the market where they would maybe think that, okay, this is something I could work with. After doing all that work, we just re-advertised it back at the price at the 320,000. We had again, there was another 12 inquiries came through like within a few days. We'd hosted about 7 or 8 inspections and had an offer 4 days later for the price the owner wanted. So
that's just amazing that that's something so simple, or like, again, taking on the advice of the agent and being like, look, I think if we did this, and
it's not an easy thing to do. Like, we're not talking about $200 here. We're talking $3,000 or $4,000.
No.
And at the point where John had made this call with the owner, the property had already been on the market for over a month.
Yeah.
And so the owner's like, is my house ever going to sell? And John came to the owner with a proposal, shifted the narrative, sold it for what the owner wanted.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
So he had to have the confidence in John and what he was suggesting to him as well.
And in that breath, you've said, you thought you're going to have to adjust it down to your 300 mark, whereas, you've ended up getting what the asking price was.
Yeah, 320.
Which you've spent your $3 or $4 grand. However, that $3 or $4 grand wouldn't have existed if you sold it so we would have missed out on 16 grand.
That's right.
Or so when you put it all in the maths machine.
Yep, and that was sort of a scenario too, going back to that young couple at first, like, but we're concerned that whatever are we going to get this back? It's like, absolutely. Because that, in that case, then what happens then when you get to the final stages of presentation is that all this work we're suggesting to them was about protecting it. And then if they were to move out, if it was possible and we were to style it and do those final bits of painting, well, then that's going to enhance the perception and the then potential sale value because people can completely see the unit differently. And that's what painting and styling that little one in Norfolk Crescent did.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
You even saw it differently,
Oh, no, I did. Yeah. And like I said, I've looked at it from different angles and kind of was able to capture what the space actually was rather than, and look, it's a tricky one. I know the day that we were down shooting for the first time, the tenant there had moved so much of her, and she was in a tricky spot because her hair salon was, she had all that stock that she couldn't. She had all her hair chairs and we'd put them in a space. And so working around all that, it does change the way that you could shoot that property. So we actually had an opportunity to have a clean slate, a brand new slate with fresh walls and, got to shoot the kitchen from a different way and, kind of open up the possibilities and create that, as Pat said, narrative of, this is a really nice functional space for. I think you said the purchaser was really happy. She's like, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
She's going to move in herself.
And it's bang on.
Well, and then the thing is too is that the downtime was about 10 to 14 days from taking it off the original advertisement, getting a painter in, getting it styled, getting you in, getting it relaunched didn't even take us 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And boom, we had a contract 3 days later, So
that bit really kind of blows me out that there can be it can be on the market, but then you've got 12 interested people who, maybe they saw it before, but maybe they didn't. Mm-hmm. But, maybe they were like, oh, I never saw it in that light. Or they were just kind of like, oh, this place looks amazing. Like, this is a brand new thing. Yep. I know it was tricky when I was creating some social media posts. I'm like, do I market this as a new listing or fresh listing? So I went with the term fresh rather than being like, I don't want people being like, oh, they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes.
Yeah.
They're trying to say this is a brand new listing. I was just like, oh, well, I better kind of make sure they think.
I had a call from a bloke who said, oh, I know this house has been on the market. Are you the second agent to have a crack at it? And I was like, yeah, I am. I didn't realise I was the exact same agent.
You just had gone from a blue jacket to a red jacket.
Yeah, to red jacket. And that was sort of the handy thing too, because we'd obviously shifted it from our old brand to the new one. So it was all these really good little ways that we could mix it in.
Yeah.
And that's, so it's amazing then to wrap that up, to come to this point where even in a good market, you still need to be doing the right things to the property in order to bring people through. So, and that was the thing I said to the couple. I said, we both said, was that she said, oh, but what if I do all this work and then the market drops? I said, well, the fundamentals of selling never change, and that's to get the presentation right.
Yep.
So regardless of what the market is doing, is that you still got to position the property so it's the best it can be in the market at any time.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
Sure does, Pat. I'm so happy with all your input today, mate.
You know what? A big just back off. I was busy at the start of the episode and John's story at the end.
I was actually sincere right then. It might have sounded like it wasn't, but I am very happy. And then that was sincere. You know my sincere voice. I'm very happy with your input today, Patrick. And I'm also happy with yours, John.
Well, I must say it is nice now we're all working together because all of us have got the different levels of complementary skills. So it's nice then to integrate that to be able to provide those services to our clients with the two companies now together. And that's sort of something that I was probably one of the most things I was excited about working with you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And that really played off when we were chatting with those guys yesterday, as far as I was concerned.
Now I'm just looking forward to Friday afternoons playing the Hogs of War card game that Pat purchased the other day.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't get scammed. I've had no correspondence since I bought it, but I'm sure it's coming.
If not, we'll just find an emulator and play it online. But it's been a busy month. Thanks for everyone for listening along to the Property Pod again. Sorry it's a little bit late this week. As we said, it's been busy and we have been cracking the whip out there in the field.
This is true. Always a pleasure. And we'll see you next week. Woo! Well, I'll see you in 5 minutes, but we'll see you on the mics next week.
We will.
Good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006 with their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property. They have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
You have been listening to The Property Pod, produced and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Real Estate and McGregor First National Propriety Limited.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute, should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this